The most terrifying enemy to ever invade our galaxy was extragalactic in origin. Not only did this parasite manage to destroy the most powerful civilization our galaxy has ever known, it also emerged again over 100,000 years later to reclaim its territory and dominance. Hey guys, it's the Tyrant here, and recently in this series we talked about the state of the Covenant and how they most likely wouldn't pose a major threat in the next Halo game. To sum it up, the Storm Covenant no longer have a leader, and on top of that, they are now fighting a war on 3 fronts. The UNSC, the Swords of Sanghelios, and the Prometheans, who are now controlled by self-appointed Galactic Empress Cortana. With the way things are left in Halo 5 Guardians, it does make you think that Halo 6 will only be comprised of Prometheans. While it certainly is possible, it's also highly unlikely. Let's break this down. First off, it's extremely rare for a Halo game to only contain one faction, with the exception, of course, of Halo 3 ODST. Even Halo Reach had animals native to the planet fighting back against the Covenant, even though these encounters were extremely rare. Faction-based fighting has always been a major part of the Halo universe, and it's hard to believe that 343 would bring their Reclaimer trilogy to a head with us only dealing with the Prometheans. And that brings us to our second point. Only the Prometheans? It's hard to imagine 343 finding it even remotely acceptable to have a game where the only enemy is an army of emotionless automatons. If you want a taste of what a game like that would feel like, load up Halo 5 Guardians and play the mission The Breaking over and over again a few times, fighting waves and waves of teleporting and warping robots. It gets old pretty quick. In fact, I'd even go out on a limb here and say that fighting our way through the library in the first Halo game is more exciting than fighting a never-ending army of robots. However, there is still one major faction we haven't heard from since Halo 3, and it still has some loose ends that need to be tied up. Of course, I'm referring to the one and only Flood. Now I know what you're thinking. Don't be stupid, Tyrant. You know we destroyed the Flood at the end of Halo 3. You sure about that? Let's take a second to reflect on the modern history of the Flood and where they popped up in the Halo universe in reference to the games. The first known UNSC encounter with the Flood occurred in 2531, where the UNSC ship Spirit of Fire landed on a Forerunner shield world that was infested with the parasite. How the Flood got there to begin with is virtually unknown, but I think it's pretty safe to say that they had been there for quite some time. By the end of the campaign, that particular Flood outbreak was contained when the shield world was completely destroyed. But again, the origins of the outbreak itself still remain unknown. The next outbreak encountered by humans occurred on Alpha Halo, aka Installation 04. The Covenant accidentally released the parasite and caused it to quickly spread throughout the ring. The Flood quickly attempted to turn UNSC Captain Keyes into a proto-Gravemind in order to use the Covenant ship to leave the installation, but their plans were thwarted when the Master Chief used the fusion reactors from the UNSC Halcyon-class cruiser the Pillar of Autumn to destroy the Halo ring as well as the Flood. The third encounter was met by the Covenant inside an old Forerunner research station orbiting the same planet as the first Halo ring. The Flood were accidentally released, presumably by the Covenant heretics, but it's presumed that the outbreak was contained when the research station was sucked into the gas planet's gravitational pull and most likely crushed as a result. However, the fourth outbreak is where things start to get interesting. The next time we encountered the Flood was on Delta Halo, aka Installation 05. Unlike the situation on 04, the Flood here were already released thousands of years ago, and were being contained by a towering sentinel wall, a shield generator, and an ever-growing army of heavily armed sentinels. What isn't known is how the Flood managed to not only survive, but also reproduce over the course of time without having hosts to infect. On top of that, the quarantine zone on Delta Halo was stricken by inclement weather, yet the Flood still managed to survive, proving that they are in fact quite durable. It was later discovered that the base of the installation's library served as the residence for a Gravemind, a central conscience for the local Flood infestation. Given the Gravemind's knowledge, it's quite evident that it had been there for quite some time and possessed great knowledge of the Halo ring itself. From there, the Gravemind managed to escape the containment structure of the library thanks to the Covenant lowering the Sentinel Wall's shield, and take over the massive Covenant city ship High Charity in order to travel the galaxy. What isn't known, however, is what happened to the remainder of the Flood on Delta Halo. Since it was now able to spread throughout the ring freely, it's fairly safe to assume that the Flood infestation is still alive and well in the ring world despite the Gravemind's departure. The games have yet to mention otherwise. And while the Flood initially intended on invading Earth while using High Charity as a means of travel, plans changed once the Forerunner Ark was discovered, and it became very apparent that the Covenant Prophet of Truth planned to use it to activate all of the Halo rings. The Gravemind crash-landed High Charity on the Ark, and immediately aided in the assault on the Prophet of Truth. The joint effort with the Master Chief and the Arbiter was successful, but once the deed had been done, the Gravemind immediately turned its attention back to its inherent parasitic nature. Although the Master Chief was able to destroy the crashed High Charity vessel, the Gravemind proved to be far more durable than originally thought, and invaded the new Halo ring created by the Ark. Finally, at the end of the Halo game, the Master Chief and Cortana managed to light the unfinished Halo ring, supposedly destroying the Flood by also simultaneously destroying both the Halo ring and the Ark. That's pretty much the end of it, right? Or is it? Fast forward to 2558, the year the Spirit of Fire unfreezes its crew and steers us directly into the plot of Halo Wars 2. While the game isn't set to be released until early next year, we already know that it will mainly take place on the Ark. That's right, it's still intact. It may not fully be operational anymore, but we do know that when we left it in Halo 3, it was still infested by the Flood. And as far as the Halo detonation goes, I'll let Cortana sum this one up.
Halo doesn't kill Flood, it kills their food. Humans, Covenant, whatever. We're all equally edible. The only way to stop the Flood is to starve them to death. And that's exactly what Halo is designed to do. Wipe the galaxy clean of all sentient life.
So the Master Chief's plan to wipe out the Flood via lighting the Halo ring revolved around the unstable Halo also destroying the Ark via sheer explosive force. But now we know it didn't. So it stands to reason that since we already know that the Flood can survive in even the most extreme conditions, it's extremely likely that the Flood still exists on what's left of the Ark. And with that, also includes the possibility of the surviving Gravemind. Now let's look at Halo Wars 2 itself. It's set in the same year in which the events occur in Halo 5 Guardians. This is Microsoft we're talking about here, so it's safe to say that this is not a coincidence. So it also stands to reason that the events in Halo Wars 2 will somehow impact the events of the next major Halo game. We may not know exactly how yet, but we do know that neither the UNSC nor the banished faction of the Covenant Remnants individually possess enough power and strength to defeat Cortana and her legions of Promethean forces. Alright, so we've talked about why 343 would bring back the Flood and how it could still be around, but what we haven't discussed yet is why it would be extremely likely for them to return in Halo 6. Well, as I just said, with the Covenant being toast, which, by the way, was even confirmed in an interview that GameSpot had with 343 Industries, and neither of the remaining factions having the strength to deal with such a threat, it stands to reason that the only option to stop Cortana and save the galaxy would be through the most dangerous and controversial decision ever made by the UNSC or the Swords of Sanghelios, the release of the Flood, the one enemy that the Forerunners were never able to truly defeat. Sure, it sounds crazy, but as we've already seen in previous Halo games, the Flood is willing to work with other species when its own existence is in immediate danger. The first time we saw an instance of the enemy of my enemy is my friend scenario was on Delta Halo, and that was when the Gravemind assisted both the Master Chief and the Arbiter in stopping the lighting of the Halo ring.
There is still time to stop the key from turning, but first it must be found. You will search one likely spot, and you will search another. Fate had us meet as foes, but this ring will make us brothers.
Yeah, sure, it only had its own best interests at heart, but it still gave the Arbiter and the humans the chance they needed to stop the Forerunner technology from being used. We saw this again in Halo 3 when the Flood actually fought side by side with the Master Chief and the Arbiter in a joint effort to stop the Prophet of Truth from activating the entire Halo array.
Do not shoot, but listen. Let me lead you safely to our foe. Only you can halt what he has set in motion.
Now, while it's true that the Gravemind immediately turned on them afterwards, it did prevent all life in the galaxy from instantaneous death and allowed the humans and elites time to formulate a plan to beat the Flood. So it stands to reason that creating a Flood threat in the galaxy would be at the very least a distraction for Cortana and divert her attention away from humanity long enough for us to figure out a way to actually defeat her. It would most certainly put a wrench in her plans while simultaneously creating the most effective type of opponent to deal with an army of robots. And that, of course, is an army of space zombies. Now, in terms of how they would actually arrive on the scene, this could happen in various ways. After the events of Halo Wars 2, the Flood left stranded on the Ark from Halo 3 could easily manage to hijack either the Spirit of Fire or a ship from the Banished and could use it to return to our galaxy. And since we saw at the end of Halo 5 Guardians that Cortana had begun reactivating the Halo rings, she and the Prometheans would become priority one for the Flood, instigating a new Forerunner Flood war. The second option is that the Flood infestation is launched intentionally. Once the UNSC and Swords of Sanghelios are made aware of the Flood still existing on the Ark, they may see this as their only option to tip the balance of the war in their favor. And while it does admittedly seem far less likely that we would intentionally re-release the Flood back into our own galaxy, remember, there was also once a time when the thought of Master Chief and Cortana willingly lighting a Halo ring also sounded far-fetched.
Replacement. The ring you destroyed.
When did you know?
Just now. But I had my hopes. What will you do?
Light it.
Then we are agreed. A tactical pulse will completely eradicate the local infestation. I will personally oversee the final preparations, though it will take time to fabricate.
In terms of exactly how this would turn the tide of the war, I foresee the outcome occurring one of two ways. Either the intervention of the Flood causes enough of a distraction for Cortana to allow a joint effort made by the UNSC and the Swords of Sanghelios to find Cortana's weakness, take control of the Mantle of Responsibility and remaining Forerunner tech, and use it to defeat the remaining Flood forces, or the Flood threat, intentional or not, becomes so overwhelming that Cortana finally gives in and decides to rejoin the UNSC and use everything at her disposal with the Forerunner domain to defeat the Flood and strike a truce, thus unvilifying Cortana and bringing the story to a peaceful close. Wow, run-on sentence much. But it's for these reasons that I strongly believe that the evidence points us in the direction that we'll be seeing the return of the Flood in Halo 6, as well as an epic conclusion to a galaxy-spanning saga. Alright, well thank you guys so much for watching. I'm curious to know what you think of my findings, and whether or not you believe this is exactly what we'll be seeing in Halo 6, or if you have a different theory entirely. You can let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, or you can also let me know on my social media sites, Twitter and Facebook. If you aren't already following me, I'd really love to hear from you, and links to my social media pages can be found in the description below. And if you love this video, please share it with your friends, or if you hated it, send it to someone just to annoy the living crap out of them. And don't forget to click that subscribe button for more video game related content every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on MythicTyrant.com. I'll see you all right back here next time. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'm the Tyrant, signing off.